So, welcome back to the channel, and this car you haven't actually seen yet. This is a 2009 Mini Cooper that my wife has been using as a runaround for the last year or so. Now, we bought it with 12 months MOT on it, and just after we bought it, the clutch started slipping, and I didn't have time to do it, and I didn't have anywhere to do it because this garage was full of bits and pieces, and the other garage obviously didn't have a floor in it. So I took it down to the local garage and they sorted the clutch out. But unfortunately, while it was there, the subframe was really rotten. So they changed the front subframe as well. I managed to get hold of one of those, cleaned it up, and that was fine. They mentioned also the rear subframe. Now this was advised on the last MOT, but it's really bad. So we're going to get on and change the rear subframe as well. So I've already jacked the car up and got the wheels off. Now if you own one of these cars, you might realise just how much of a pain this is. There is a jacking point, but if you jack it up on the jacking point, there isn't any way to put an axle stand. The underside of the car is covered in body panels, and it's very, very difficult to put anything anywhere. So I've managed to jack the front up and put an axle stand under the back and then tilt it, and yeah, it wasn't a great idea, but it worked. So yeah, if you own one of these cars, you'll know what a pain it is to do. But we'll get underneath and show you what the problem is. So yeah, it's pretty bad in here. You can see the rust. Everything's just flaking off and breaking off, big chunks of it. So I mean, it's unlikely that you could save this one, to be honest. I think it's too far gone. And you can see there where the metal's just delaminated here. It's just not going to be any good at all. So yeah, that's pretty knackered. So to get this off, we're going to have to remove the under tray, because this obviously is just above it. So you need to take the plastic trays off, take the guard off for the exhaust, and take the exhaust off as well. And I'm hoping there's a joint at the front so I can get the exhaust off. Can't see anything all the way down the middle. So the first job, get that brace off, get the exhaust off, then take these plastic trims off, and then start unbolting it. Obviously the handbrake cable will have to come off, and the brake pipes. I don't see there being any other major problems other than probably drop links. They don't usually come off in one piece. And we'll go from there. So we'll make a start. First job will be to get the plate and the exhaust off. So I've got the front up on axle stands now, just because that exhaust has only got one connector on it down the front there. So to get the exhaust off, the first thing I need to do is remove this plate. What I'm doing here is removing that front clamp. Now this is 16mm nut. After I'm doing that, I'm using a pair of long nose pliers just to prise it open. Found it quite awkward to get off this clamp. So ignore me moving the axle stand by hand while I'm underneath the car. I picked up one of these exhaust hanger tools off of Amazon, and I gotta be honest, it's worth its weight in gold. So after placing a jack under the front of the exhaust, to move to the back and remove the hangers there. This tool made it really easy, especially with the limited amount of space available here. With all the exhaust hangers removed, I dropped the jack down and then slid the exhaust out from underneath the car. So then it was on to removing the plastic under trays and heat shielding from underneath the car. Now the first screw I tried to undo was a little torque screw holding the plastic under tray onto the felt arch liner, but unfortunately this had just rusted away and snapped. Not a really big deal, it was easily replaced. The cable tie you see me cutting was holding the brake sensor wire. I think it's a pad wear sensor. It wasn't connected on the car, and I think somebody just tucked it up out the way. Then there was a little plastic clip that held the plastic under tray to the side skirts of the car. Again, that was easily removed, just a Phillips screwdriver, and pulled it out. and then everything else on the actual tray itself were 10mm plastic nuts. The only exception was the mount onto the subframe. Now there's two mounts onto the subframe, one's a 10mm plastic nut and then there's a 10mm bolt that bolts into the subframe. Because the subframe was so rusty, this 10mm bolt just wouldn't come out, it was just turning. The nut that was welded into the subframe was rusted away and it was just turning in the subframe. The exhaust heat shield was easy enough. There was two metal 10mm nuts holding it on in the middle. Once they were removed, just bent the front section slightly and removed the back bit. The two rear fixings had rusted away anyway. I ended up breaking that mount off and then plastic welded it back on afterwards. It was the only way I could get it off the car.
So you can see the full extent of the rust here. It's really quite bad. And this mount for the fuel tank on this side wasn't even connected. This literally just rusted away. Luckily the other side is okay, although it's still attached, so I wouldn't say it's okay. I've started to try and undo it and it's pulling it off the actual subframe as well. So I think I can get the subframe out in one piece. Obviously it's a mounting bolt here and another one up there. Disconnect the metal brake pipes. Now if that doesn't undo, I have seen people undo these and it's twisted the pipe. If that's the case, what I will probably do is cut the rubber pipe, cut this off, and then I can sort that out afterwards once the actual subframe is off. But I need to disconnect the brake sensors, brake pipes, may have to take the shock absorber off to get it to go back, but I think there's enough room there to do that. Just get these arms off, get the handbrake cable out of the way, and we'll go from there basically.
I did try and undo this metal brake pipe, but unfortunately it was solid into the rubber flexi. So I used the air saw just to cut the mount off. This way I could sort it out afterwards when there's more room.
So this bottom shock absorber bolt is an 18mm head, but it's into this aluminium housing and it's corroded, so it's not going to be easy to get out. The other side didn't come out at all and I've had to drop the whole suspension off the other side. Hopefully I won't have to do that on this side, but we'll give it a go. So that came out. Yeah, it's not too bad at all, that side. The other side could not undo. It's the top mount bolts. Not easy to get to either, especially with the wrong spanner. Just disconnect the ABS sensor. So the next job then is the anti-roll bar, top and bottom. So just going to hold the back of the drop link with a vice grip. Pull the front off. Yes. So once the bottom's disconnected on both sides, it makes accessing this top one a lot easier. And again, just need to hold the back side of it. So the only things left to undo now is the handbrake cable. I'm going to cut the brake flexi anyway because of that problem with the pipe. So once they're off, it's just those two arms, and I've put this axle stand here just to let that rest on it, just so it doesn't stress the bush too much. So I've just given these a quick clean with a wire brush, so they should hopefully come undone. And then do these two, take the two arms off, and then that should be enough room. Then once the cables and all the bits and pieces are out of the way, should be enough room for that subframe to come out. We just pull this clip out the handbrake cable, and then pull the cable forward. And out. There should be enough slack on it. It's not, you don't want it too tight, because the last thing you want is that to be on all the time. So once that's out, you can feed it back through the subframe. Came out easy enough. So this bottom bolt is an eccentric washer. This big piece here, the bolt goes through, and this piece is like an eccentric washer that sits in a slot. So ideally just mark this to begin with. It'll give you a good starting point when you refit everything, but you're still going to have to get the alignment done. So just mark it up. So these are, that's it. Top one is an 18 and the bottom one I think is a 16. Yeah. So that will come out fairly easily. And then the 18 at the top I think is a nut and bolt. Arm is free now, so it's just the two center bolts now. Again, 18mm nut and bolt. So I'm just going to clamp this hose and cut it. So the last remaining bolt to sort out is this one holding the tank on. The other side obviously is rusted away and we got the actual mounting bolts onto the body, but this is the last bolt remaining. And I'm not holding much hope out for this either. So I'm going to put the jack and some wood underneath the tank and then try and get this off, and then we should be clear to get the tank, get the subframe out of the way. Yeah, that's just snapped off, which kind of makes life a bit easier, to be honest. So that's the subframe removed, and other than the mount for this fuel tank here that needs sorting out,
and the brake pipes need to be sorted out. That's everything off for the subframe. And actually, considering how bad the subframe is, I don't think the body is too bad. I've had a tap around with a hammer, and apart from some surface rust, it's all pretty good under here, to be honest. So I think what I'm going to do under here is just brush it all back with a wire brush, and then give it a quick coat of underseal or paint or something just to protect it a little bit and make it last a little bit longer. But yeah, fairly pleased with that. So we'll give this a clean up, sort this out, sort these brake pipes out, and then we'll get the new subframe back in. So just checking here that everything is the same on both subframes, and you can see just how bad this one was now. Obviously this bit here is just disintegrated, nothing left. It's hard to believe that that made it through an MOT last year, let alone this year, but I don't go out of my way to buy rusty cars, honest. The car itself isn't in bad nick, so everything looks the same. I've obviously got to take the anti-roll bar off, put it on that one. I mean this one is just literally nothing left here. It's all gone. Obviously I've taken the mounts off for the brake pipes. They've been cut off this one. Try and get this mount off if I can. That's the plastic shields, bits and pieces, but yeah, I think it's definitely due to be changed. Okay, so hopefully you can see the result here, and it's really fairly good. There is a bit of pitting on the floor pans. The rust you could see, obviously it did take a little bit of the floor pan away, but they're solid. They are nice and clean. So I was going to underseal it, but because it was so nice, I just wire brushed it, cleaned it up a little bit, and then painted it. Bit of primer, bit of paint, and it just looks a lot cleaner and fresh like this, and you can see there's nothing hidden. The trouble with putting some underseal on, which is what I was going to do initially, is that it always looks like you're trying to hide something, whereas it's just not the case. You're trying to seal it up and prolong its life as much as possible. So the first job I want to do is get this beam mounted back on here so that I can put the tank mounts back on and remove that jack. I have bought new bolts for this. They are on their way, but I'll just use the old bolts for now, and we'll get that installed. I did manage to get the brake pipe sorted out. Now, they're plastic coated, and when they clamp in, they obviously cause an issue. All they did was heat it up a bit, and it came off no problem at all. So that was the same both sides, so I'm really pleased with that. So I'm going to get the subframe bolted in place, mount the tank, and then we can start putting it back together. So once you've had your practice run of fitting up your rear beam, take it all back off again and fit your anti-roll bar, which needs to go on before the beam is fitted up. So these bolts, the original ones, are very, very short. They're not in great condition again, so I've got some of these bolts. I've chopped them down in the vise, and then hopefully they will do the job in here. So because these aren't 100%, they're going to be a little bit more difficult to start off, but they should go in the holes, no issues.
So I've taken a break from doing the Mini for just over a week. This is due to various problems, but one of which was BMW. Now, the bolts were so rusty I wanted to change them, and obviously they're quite unique to the car, so you can only get them from BMW. They didn't have them in stock, which is fair enough, it's quite an old car, but they were going to order them and send them to me. Well, that never happened. So they did order them, but they forgot to send them to me. After a week or so, like I said, there was other problems as well, and eventually I went down to see what was happening and picked them up myself because they hadn't sent them. When I got there, the bolts were slightly different. So the little bolts for the beam, they've changed the heads on those to E14. These are like a male Torx bolt. That's not an issue, apart from the fact that they sent 4 of those and they only need 2 of them. The 2 long bolts are the really unique ones, so they're right, but they've got a different head on them, so not worried about that. And then in the picture, the parts picture, there's the arms coming off the beam, and I ordered the bolts for those as well. But obviously in the picture there's only 2 arms, so they've only sent 2 bolts and 2 nuts for those. They said, oh, how bad, we'll have to reorder them, but to be honest, I just haven't got time to wait again. So what I'm going to do is use the best of the 2 that I've got, and then just put the arms back together. So I'll just crack on now and get this put back together and get it finished.
So there's a 24mm spanner just to make the adjustment on here, and you can see then as it's moving, it's just going to line up where it was. So the replacement anti-roll bar drop link is a top and a bottom. This obviously is longer to go through the aluminium housing, which is thicker. So the short one goes to the top. And these are cheap ones with cheap nuts. So I put a washer on there because it normally would come with a flange nut. So I have come back underneath and just loosened all these bolts off slightly, just so that once the weight of the car is on the wheels, it doesn't stress these bushes out. So what I'll do is put it up on the drive-on ramps that I've got, and then once the weight of the car is on, I can tighten these up and get them in the right place. The outer one's exactly the same. It's all going to go for a wheel alignment anyway, but the rest of it now is just putting on the panels and all the bits and pieces.
So I've managed to get the car back down off the axle stands and onto the little ramps. I've put the wheels back on just so they can tighten up these bushes in the right position. You don't want them stressed, they have to be in their resting position before you tighten them up. Now that's easier said than done once you put all the covers back on. Unfortunately they're all in the way, the exhaust is in the way, etc. But it is doable. But bear that in mind if you're doing this, because it's easier just to do them beforehand. So that's everything for the rear axle done. There's a couple of little jobs I need to do, including giving it a wash, etc. But that's going to be basically it for this video. If you have been enjoying them, please do like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out, and I will see you again shortly on the next one. Thanks for watching.